Hours before his final show in 1977, Elvis quietly gathered the Memphis Mafia in a dim Graceland room. They expected last-minute instructions or setlist changes, not the emotional request he made instead. Witnesses say the room went silent. None of them could have guessed how long they'd carry out his final wish. August 15, 1977. Graceland didn't sound like Graceland tonight. No laughter from the kitchen. No friendly shouting from the hallway. Just thunder rolling across the Tennessee sky and the soft, nervous tapping of Elvis's boots on the wooden floor. He paced the music room slowly, passing the piano again and again. The small lamp near the corner threw a warm glow across the walls, but the air felt cold. Too cold for August. Joe Esposito watched him from the doorway, arms crossed, trying to read the mood. Charlie Hodge sat on the edge of the couch, bouncing his knee. Red West leaned against the wall, quiet for once. Something was wrong. Elvis hadn't touched his guitar all evening. It lay on the piano bench like it was waiting for a moment that wouldn't come. Instead, Elvis kept brushing his fingers across a small leather-bound diary sitting beside it. The cover was worn, the edges soft, as if he had carried it for years. Joe finally asked, "E, you all right?" Elvis didn't answer. He kept pacing, staring at the floor, then at the diary, then at the storm outside. Lightning flashed, lighting up his face for a split second, and in that flash he didn't look like the king of rock and roll. He looked like a man wrestling with something he had avoided for too long. A simple question filled the room like smoke. Why would a man who faced thousands on stage be scared of talking to the people closest to him? Charlie cleared his throat gently. "Elvis, if this is about the show tomorrow, we can fix anything. You just tell us." But Elvis shook his head. "It's not the show." Short, sharp, pattern breaker. The men shifted uncomfortably. They had been with him through tours, heartbreaks, lawsuits, fights, and miracles. They had seen him exhausted, angry, laughing, broken, glowing. But tonight was different. Tonight Elvis looked afraid. Another thought floated silently in the air. What could possibly scare Elvis Presley inside his own home? He finally stopped pacing. His hand hovered above the diary again, almost shaky. The storm outside let out a low rumble as if the sky itself was waiting. Elvis turned toward his closest friends, the men who had followed him from the early days in Memphis to the bright lights of Vegas. He looked at each one, as if memorizing their faces. "Sit down," he whispered. The men obeyed without question. The room felt smaller now, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Elvis stood in front of them, holding the diary in both hands. His voice trembled slightly when he opened his mouth. "Boys," he said softly. The air tightened. "I need you to promise me something for the rest of your lives." Joe Esposito leaned forward first. Charlie Hodge's eyes widened. Red West straightened his back like he expected bad news. But nothing prepared them for what Elvis did next. He held up the little leather-bound diary. The thunder outside cracked through the silence. The lamp flickered once. Elvis's hands, normally steady even before a show, shook just enough for Joe to notice. "Elvis?" Joe whispered. "What's going on?" Elvis didn't sit. He didn't smile. He didn't lighten the mood with one of his usual jokes. He opened the diary instead, revealing pages filled with uneven handwriting, pressed flowers, and ink smudges that told their own stories. "This," Elvis said quietly, "is everything I never said out loud." The men looked at each other in confusion. Elvis continued. "Thoughts, mistakes, things I wrote when I couldn't sleep, things I wish I'd told Mama, things I want Lisa to know when she's old enough." A thin page fluttered under his thumb as he spoke. The sound was soft, but it hit the room like a warning. Red frowned. "E, why are you showing us this?" Elvis finally sat, sinking into the piano bench like he was carrying more weight than his body was meant to hold. "Because," he said, "I don't want anyone else to see it." The words landed like a punch. Charlie blinked. "You mean the press?" "All of them," Elvis said. "Reporters, biographers, collectors, strangers. Anyone who'd twist it into something it's not. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows. Joe glanced at the storm, then back at Elvis. "But Joe said softly, "you're one of the most open men alive. You talk to your fans. You give everything on stage. Why fear this?" Elvis closed the diary gently, like it was fragile glass. "Because some truths," he said, "don't belong to the world." Short, sharp, pattern breaker. The room shifted. The mood with it. They had seen Elvis exhausted. They had seen him angry. They had seen him lost. But this was different. This was vulnerability without a stage. Fear without applause. Honesty without armor. Charlie swallowed hard. "What's in it, Elvis didn't hesitate. "Things I'm proud of. Things I'm ashamed of. Things I wish I could undo." He touched the cover again. "And lessons for Lisa. For when I can't tell her myself." The men stiffened. Elvis rarely talked about not being there for Lisa. He believed he had more time. He always believed he'd see her grow up, sing with her someday, teach her how to play piano the way he learned. Slowly, with mistakes, laughter, and patience. So why tonight? Why now? Joe asked the same question the others were thinking. Why does this sound like a goodbye? Elvis didn't answer immediately. His shoulders lowered. His eyes softened, heavy with a truth he hadn't said out loud until now. "Because I don't know how much time I have left," he whispered. The room froze. Red shook his head. "Don't talk like that." "I'm serious," Elvis said. "Something feels different." Lightning flashed again. The diary cast a small shadow across his lap. Then Elvis took a slow breath and looked up, meeting each man's eyes one by one. "I need you to protect this," he said. "Not just tonight. Not just this year." He paused. The storm went completely quiet for a second, as if something beyond the room was listening. "I need you to guard this diary," Elvis said. "Even after I'm gone." Joe's mouth fell open. Charlie whispered, "Elvis, don't say that." But Elvis didn't take the words back. He didn't soften them. He didn't explain. He simply held the diary closer, like it was the last piece of truth he still owned. Elvis asked them to guard the diary, even after I'm gone. For a moment, nobody breathed. The storm outside rattled the windows again, but the sound barely registered. Elvis's words hung in the air like smoke. Heavy, impossible, unforgettable. Charlie Hodge blinked fast, trying to process what he'd just heard. Red West's jaw tightened. Joe Esposito leaned forward slowly, like he wasn't sure if Elvis was serious or just exhausted. "Elvis?" Joe whispered. "Why would you say something like that?" Elvis didn't answer right away. He stared down at the diary in his hands. The worn leather cover, the creased spine, the tiny scratch marks near the corner where he used to grip it too tightly during lonely nights. Finally, he said, "Because I need you three to understand how important this is." Joe tried to force a smile. "You're talking like something's gonna happen." Elvis looked up, and the room felt colder. "I don't feel right, Joe." That single line hit them hard. Red spoke first, shaking his head. "We all get tired, You've been working nonstop. It's nothing, just stress." Elvis didn't argue. He didn't reassure them. He didn't even blink. He just let the silence answer for him. The thunder rolled again. Longer this time, like the sky was warning them of something they couldn't see. Charlie got up and paced. You've said strange things before shows. You get nervous. You talk about pressure. But this," he gestured to the diary. "This isn't you." Elvis's voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It just stayed painfully calm. "I'm telling you the truth. Another pattern breaker. Short, unmistakable. It stabbed the room like ice." Joe rubbed his face. Okay. Let's say we believe you. Why us? Why this? Why tonight?" Elvis touched the cover of the diary again. "Because if this ever gets out, it could hurt the people I love." Charlie stepped closer. "What's inside? What could be so bad?" Elvis hesitated. He wasn't scared of crowds or cameras, but this was different. When he finally answered, his voice softened. Everything I couldn't say out loud. Memories I never told anyone. Mistakes I still carry. He swallowed hard. And things I wish I'd told Lisa. Things she might need one day. The men went silent. Even Red, who usually pushed back the hardest, looked shaken. Joe whispered, "You really think she'll need it?" Elvis looked down, eyes clouded. "Someday." The lamp buzzed faintly in the corner. Rain started tapping against the window, calm at first, then faster, then hard enough to drown out the sound of Elvis's breathing. Red finally stepped forward, frustration building. "Elvis, you can give this to her yourself. You're going to be around a long time." Elvis shook his head gently. "I don't know that." Something inside Joe cracked. He wasn't just watching a friend worry. He was watching a man accept something the rest of them weren't ready to face. Joe's voice trembled. Don't talk like that." Elvis placed the diary on his lap and stared at the wall behind them, eyes unfocused, almost distant. "You remember what Mama said?" he asked quietly. "Life can change in a heartbeat." Charlie whispered, "Elvis, please." But Elvis kept going. "I feel it. Something's coming. I don't know what, but I know I won't always be here to protect her." That line hurt, more than any of them expected. More than any show injury, any argument, any scandal. Elvis took another long breath, straightened his shoulders, and finally made the choice he'd been building toward all night. He stood up, walked toward Joe, and held out the diary like it was a piece of his soul. "Joe," he said softly, "I'm trusting you with this." Joe froze, hands halfway raised, shocked by the weight of the moment. Charlie stared. Red stopped breathing. The storm outside exploded with another crack of thunder. Then Elvis placed the diary in Joe Esposito's hands, and Joe froze. Joe Esposito didn't move at first. The diary felt heavier than it looked, as if Elvis had handed him more than paper and ink. Even the leather cover seemed warm from Elvis's hands. Joe felt his heartbeat pounding in his palms. "Elvis," he whispered, I can't hold this. Not something like this." Elvis didn't take it back. He just looked at Joe with tired, steady eyes. Eyes that carried years of secrets, memories, and weight. Charlie swallowed hard. You can't expect Joe to carry this alone." "I'm not," Elvis said quietly. "I'm expecting all of you to." The rain outside tapped harder against the windows. The lamp on the piano buzzed again. A soft draft crept under the door, carrying the faint smell of wet grass from outside the mansion. Joe's fingers tightened around the diary. He could feel the pages shifting inside. Pages Elvis had written during lonely nights, long tours, and moments of doubt no one knew he had. "Elvis," Red said, stepping forward. "What exactly is in here?" Elvis took a long breath. "Things I never wanted the world to twist." He looked at the lamplight reflecting off the glossy floor. "Memories of Mama," he continued softly. "Regrets about choices I made. Things about fame that I didn't want Lisa to grow up reading in some magazine." Joe felt the weight of the moment settle deep in his chest. A simple question cut through his mind. How do you protect a man's truth when the world wants pieces of him forever? Charlie rubbed the back of his neck. You're scaring us. This isn't like you." Elvis didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He didn't smile. "Maybe it should have been like me," he said. "Short, sharp." He sat down again, shoulders slumping as if speaking those words drained the last bit of strength he had left. "I wrote things in there during nights I didn't think I'd make it," he admitted. "Times I felt alone. Times I felt lost. Times I felt like the stage was swallowing me whole." His voice cracked. "And I wrote things for Lisa, because I wasn't sure I'd get to tell her myself." Charlie's eyes filled with tears. Red turned away, jaw clenched. Joe felt his throat close. He opened the diary slightly, just enough to see a swirled line of handwriting and a pressed flower tucked between pages. A small purple flower, dried and delicate. "Elvis," Joe whispered, "this is your life. How can we decide who sees it?" "You're not deciding," Elvis said. "You're protecting." Another pattern breaker. Simple, piercing. The rain intensified, drowning out even their breathing for a moment. The house groaned under the wind. "Elvis," Red said softly, "are you sure Lisa needs this someday? Are you sure she won't misunderstand what you wrote?" Elvis looked up, eyes wet but steady. "She'll need it when the world feels too heavy. When she needs to know her daddy wasn't perfect, but he loved her more than anything." Joe closed the diary, holding it against his chest. Elvis stood slowly and placed a hand on Joe's shoulder. The same gesture he used when comforting him after losses, bad news, heartbreaks. But tonight it felt different, felt final. "Promise me," Elvis whispered. "Promise you'll give it to her only when the time is right." Charlie stepped closer. "Elvis, how will we know when that time is?" "You'll know," he said. "You'll feel it." The lamp flickered again. A gust of wind rattled the glass so hard that Joe flinched. Elvis squeezed his shoulder once more. "This is the most important thing I'll ever ask of you." Joe's breath shook. His hands trembled. He looked at Elvis. Not the superstar, not the legend, not the man the world worshipped. He saw a father, a fragile one, a scared one. Joe nodded slowly, a promise forming in his chest like a brand. And Elvis finally let go. Joe nodded, and Elvis finally let go of the diary. The room stayed silent long after Elvis let go of the diary. Joe held it like it might crumble in his hands. Charlie wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. Red paced slowly in the corner, fists clenched, trying to hold himself together. Outside, the storm had faded into a soft drizzle, the kind that makes everything feel heavier. Elvis looked at them quietly, as if memorizing the moment. And then, almost gently, he said, "Thank you." It didn't sound like a casual thank you. It sounded like a goodbye. Joe felt something twist inside him. Don't say it like that. You're scaring us." Elvis didn't answer. He just placed a hand on Joe's arm and squeezed once. The same gesture he used before walking on stage, before big moments, before news he didn't want to deliver. Red cleared his throat. "Elvis, you ain't going anywhere. Stop talking like you're—" Elvis cut him off with a look, a tired look, a knowing one. "I feel it," Elvis whispered. "I can't explain it, but I feel it." Short, cold, it sliced straight through them. Charlie stepped closer. "Elvis, what are you talking about?" Elvis didn't raise his voice. He didn't tremble. He didn't break. "Something's coming," he said. "Something I can't stop." The words landed like a weight on all three men. They wanted to argue. They wanted to shake him, tell him he was wrong, tell him he was tired or dramatic or just scared because of the storm. But the truth lay in his eyes. He believed it. Joe's breath caught. You'll be here to give this to Lisa yourself. I swear." Elvis shook his head slowly. "If I could, I would." The room dimmed as a cloud passed over the last bit of moonlight slipping through the window. The piano keys reflected the faint glow like small ghosts. Elvis walked to the corner of the room, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the instructions he mentioned earlier. He handed it to Red. "This stays with the diary." Red opened it briefly and saw Elvis's handwriting. Notes, dates, a few lines that looked like messages for Lisa. Red's chest tightened. He folded the paper carefully and nodded. For the first time all night, Elvis smiled. A small one, almost peaceful. "You boys have carried me through a lot," he said softly. "More than the world will ever know." Joe swallowed hard. "We'd do it all again, Elvis nodded, eyes shining. "I know." The rain slowed to almost nothing. The whole house grew still, like Graceland itself was listening. The distant ticking of a hallway clock filled the room. Charlie finally spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "What do we do if something happens sooner than we think?" Elvis met his eyes. "Keep it safe, keep it quiet, and one day, give it to her when her heart needs it." How would they know when her heart needed it? He wanted to ask, but the words stuck in his throat. Elvis took a slow breath and rubbed his hands together. "I'm going to lie down for a bit. Big day tomorrow." He tried to make it sound normal. Didn't. He stepped toward the door, paused, and looked back one final time. "Remember what I told you," he said. "All of it." His footsteps echoed down the hallway, soft, slow, fading into the distance. The men didn't speak for several minutes. Joe finally placed the diary on the table and stared at it long enough for the room to blur. Charlie whispered, "He knew." Red nodded slowly, voice breaking. "Yeah," he said. "He knew." Somehow he knew this was coming. The day after Elvis's passing, Graceland felt hollow. Even the walls seemed to echo differently. Fans gathered outside the gates, their candles glowing like tiny stars against the black metal bars. But inside the mansion, the Memphis Mafia sat silently around the kitchen table, the diary placed between them like a sacred object. Joe Esposito kept his hand on it, as if afraid someone might try to take it the moment he let go. Charlie stared at the floor. Red didn't speak for nearly an hour. None of them had slept. None of them knew what to do next. But every one of them remembered the promise. A promise that now felt heavier than the world itself. During the following weeks, interviews piled in. Reporters asked questions. Biographers called. Collectors mailed letters with shocking offers for any unseen personal writing from Elvis Presley. Rumors spread through Memphis faster than the wind. And yet, nobody outside the inner circle knew the truth. Nobody knew the diary even existed. Joe placed it in a locked box inside his home, hidden behind a stack of old tour cases. He checked on it every few days, sometimes just to reassure himself it was still safe, still untouched, still theirs. As the years passed, the promise changed hands quietly. 1983, Joe kept it. 1991, when he moved, Red held it for 6 months. 1999, it returned to Joe. 2007, a trusted friend of the Mafia stored it when Joe's health declined. Each man treated it like a living piece of Elvis himself. Meanwhile, fans speculated endlessly. At one point, a Memphis fan club circulated whispers about a lost Elvis document. Some said it was a letter to Lisa. Others claimed it was a secret set list. A few believed it was a confession of regrets. But not one rumor came close to the truth. A small plaque was added near Graceland's archive room years later. It read, "A private family record protected by loyal friends." Most visitors walked past it without a second glance. But those who knew understood the message. The diary remained untouched for decades, through family disputes, estate battles, documentaries, and changing generations of fans. Its pages stayed hidden, protected like treasure buried under decades of loyalty. One question lingered over the years. Did Lisa ever read it? Some insiders believed she did. Others insisted she never asked for it. Maybe she knew her father's words were waiting for her. Maybe she preferred to keep them unopened. Then one afternoon in the early 2000s, a former Mafia member gave an interview. His voice was soft. His eyes looked far away. He said, "There was something he left behind, something only meant for her." The room went silent. He hinted at what was inside, but never revealed it. A former Mafia member finally hinted at what was inside, but never revealed it. In the end, the diary wasn't about secrets. It wasn't about scandals. It wasn't even about fear. It was about love, the quiet kind that never makes the newspapers, the kind that survives beyond applause, beyond fame, beyond a lifetime. Elvis had trusted the Memphis Mafia with the most fragile part of himself, the words he wrote when no one was watching. And they protected those words for decades. Not because he was their boss, not because he was a legend, but because, to them, Elvis wasn't the king of rock and roll. He was family. They remembered the man who laughed with them in hotel rooms, who shared sandwiches on long drives, who prayed with them before shows, who hugged them after heartaches, who stayed awake during their darkest nights. They remembered the Elvis who carried others long before he asked anyone to carry something for him. A simple question lived inside each of them for years. What does loyalty look like when the person you're loyal to is gone? In their case, it looked like silence. It looked like protection. It looked like keeping a promise that nobody else understood. Lisa grew up. Graceland changed. The world celebrated anniversaries, released documentaries, printed books, debated rumors, but the diary never surfaced. Not once. Because the men Elvis trusted decided his final request mattered more than fame or attention or money. They kept his truth safe, guarding the most personal piece of him through marriages, moves, sickness, aging, and time. Some of them passed away with the secret still in their hearts. Others carried it quietly into their old age. None of them ever betrayed the promise, not even when they were offered life-changing amounts of money. They kept the one promise nobody knew about, and that is why the story feels different from the rest. Because it isn't a tale of fame or tragedy. It's a tale of devotion, the kind that doesn't fade when the spotlight does. In a world that always wanted more of Elvis, the Memphis Mafia chose to protect the part he wanted to keep hidden. They carried that trust through the years, even when their own lives fell apart. They honored him not with words, but with silence. The kind of silence that means love. If the story reached you, share it with someone who still believes loyalty can outlive fame. Some promises are stronger than time, louder than applause, and deeper than any legend. And if you want more untold, human stories from Elvis's world and beyond, stay with us. The next chapter in these hidden histories is already waiting.